Hello everyone, welcome back to another election watch analysis video. Today I'll be discussing my 2024 election prediction with former Vice President Mike Pence and incumbent President Joe Biden. So the reason why I make this prediction is because if you look at all of the early polls for the 2024 Republican presidential primary, you'll see that Mike Pence is doing pretty well. Of course, in polls with Donald Trump in them, and then included in the lineup of candidates, Mike Pence does not do nearly as well, but in nearly all of the polls that Donald Trump is not in, he wins. Except for this one poll where Donald Trump Jr. wins, and Mike Pence is about 6% behind him. So Mike Pence is definitely a favorite for the 2024 Republican nomination. While he may lose some of the more diehard Trump supporters and some his more fanatic fans, those would not go to Pence anyway, and likely to Donald Trump himself, or if he does not run a candidate like Ron DeSantis or Rick Scott, Trump Jr., Donald Trump Jr. that is, Ted Cruz, and so on. But Mike Pence may be able to get the more moderate Trump vote and more of the traditional Republican establishment and conservatives behind him, and be able to build a coalition that he could win in. The only problem is that I don't think Pence, and this is of course my opinion, I don't think he's a very inspiring candidate, and I think that he may not bring out Republican turnout as much, though I think that turnout will definitely be lower in 2024, because I don't think as many people will do mail-in voting, and Joe Biden and Mike Pence would certainly not be the most inspiring candidates, so I think turnout may drop. So to think about how good Pence would do, I'm going to use the 2012 Indiana gubernatorial election as a microcosm for the country as a whole. This, of course, was Mike Pence's first and only election in the Indiana statewide political arena, and he actually nearly won it by about 2.9%, and by about 75,000 votes. This is pretty interesting. While the Democrat John R. Gregg seemed to have high name recognition, he was the former Speaker of the Indiana House of Representatives, and it's of course the same ballot that Joe Donnelly won on, who would later go on to lose in 2018. But Mike Pence did not do very well. And if you look at 2016, his lieutenant governor, Eric Holcomb, won against the same person by about 6%. He improved on Mike Pence's margin. Of course, Pence was Donald Trump's running mate, so he stepped out of the race. And of course, after that, he became vice president. But I don't think Mike Pence is an exceptionally strong candidate, as you can see in this. And of course, Indiana is not going to be the same as the whole country. Mike Pence just may not have the same ability to turn out votes in Republican areas. So I'll head on to the map itself. Starting off with the candidate's home states, Indiana, the state I just talked about, it's a solid Republican state that would not change, even if Mike Pence, the former governor, on the ballot or not. Joe Biden, Delaware, of course, would be a solid Democratic state either way. And now going into the safe Republican states, I'll start with Republicans this time. Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska, and except for the 2nd District, which I'll get to later, Oklahoma, and most of the South, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Missouri. That will fill out the Republican safe states for now, so we'll go over it later, because there may be special cases. Of course, the West Coast and East Coast will be safe Democratic, and with only a few exceptions. Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland, of course, the District of Columbia, along with several other states. I don't think Joe Biden will lose any margins in a few places. Maybe he will drop little in the suburban support, because I think maybe a small percentage of suburbs will go more to Mike Pence than to Donald Trump, but it will not be a very large number. Okay, so now with the Republican states that I want to go over first, I think that Montana will be a safe state, even though it was just about 16% for Donald Trump. It appears to be trending in the weirdest way possible to the left, but I just want to go over it. Especially, I don't think it will be exceptionally close. Kansas was also 14%. Of course, saying the word Kansas trending left is a very strange term to hear, but it was decently close, especially for a plain state in a line of states that voted by massive margins for Donald Trump. it went by about 14% to Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, of course, lost by that same margin. So I think it'll be a safe margin. That will not much will change there. Despite the fact that it was slightly close in 2020, does not mean that Joe Biden will do well enough to make it like 10%. On the other hand, South Carolina was a likely state. It was about 11%. I think Joe Biden could do better there just because Mike Pence may not turn out as many Republican voters. And South Carolina does appear to be trending to the left in a certain case, though there was pretty high turnout for the South Carolina Senate race that could have helped Joe Biden. But for now, I'll put it as likely. And same with Alaska. There was a strong Democrat on the ballot for the Senate race there. And Joe Biden did well enough in the suburbs and in the rural areas, because Alaska is essentially an inverse where the rural areas are more Democratic and the urban areas are slightly more Republican just because of the oil jobs there. I think that would be about 10%, same margin it was in 2020. Going on to the safe states that I want to discuss first, I think Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia will all be safe. Colorado was safe in 2020, while New Mexico and Virginia were just about 10%. I think that they are growing blue enough that they will turn safe blue in 2024. So going on to the likely states for both party, I already did likely states for the Republicans. I'm not sure there will be any more, to be honest, so I'll go on to the Democrats. Maine at large will be a likely state, and same with Nebraska's 2nd district. So Maine at large went by about 9% in 2020. I think Joe Biden will have the same margin, and same with Nebraska's 2nd district. Not a lot to talk about there. Now we get into the more competitive states. I think starting with the least competitive state, I think New Hampshire will go by about 4% to Joe Biden, maybe 5% if he does especially well there. It went by a very uncharacteristically large margin to Joe Biden in 2020 by about 7%. Even though it was very close in 2016. I think that Joe Biden will do pretty well there, and Mike Pence will improve, but he won't do well enough to make it exceptionally close. And now going on to Maine's 2nd district, I think there'll be a lean margin, just because I don't think Mike Pence can turn out the populace and the farmers as much as Donald Trump will. And I think the main point of this video, something that you will hear a lot, is that Mike Pence will not have the same turnout effect as Donald Trump and not inspire many Republicans to come out, and I think that may lead to a Joe Biden victory, but of course, stick around to the end to see who does win. I think Minnesota's actually a pretty hard one. I'm not sure if it would be lean or likely. It was likely in 2020, and I don't think it would go more for Joe Biden, but I'm not sure if it would go for Mike Pence by any more than it went for Donald Trump. I think that it being about 7% for Joe Biden, I think it could go to maybe 4 or 5% if Mike Pence improved just enough there. But I think right now I'm putting it at about 5%, just on the cusp of lean and likely, but that does make it a likely state. Now going on to the West Coast, I think Nevada will be a lean state, pretty similar to the margin in 2020, just about 2%, about 2.4% exactly. I think will be a pretty similar margin just because I don't think Mike Pence will have any appeal among any voter groups that will be able to shift the state to the right in any way. Now going to some lean Republican states, I think Iowa will be lean. So as I said before with Maine's 2nd district, Mike Pence may not be able to turn out the populace and the farmers as much, but he still has that Trump effect, and I think that Trump will begrudgingly endorse him. He may not campaign with him very much, and some of the more loyal Trump supporters will not come out and vote. But I think that Mike Pence can still win those states all the same. That also goes for Ohio. I think Joe Biden will do far better than his 2020 performance, but maybe about 3 to 4% in each state, depending on how well Mike Pence does with the populists. Now going to Texas. Texas is a difficult one. I'm not sure if it would actually be lean or likely, but I'm putting it as lean for now because it's trending to the left, and of course you've heard that said so many times. Even though it was about 5% in 2020, it is, as I said before, trending to the left, and I think that Joe Biden could improve just enough there with certain voters that voted for Donald Trump but may not vote for Mike Pence to make it closer. So going to the Southwest again in Arizona, I think that'll go to Joe Biden by a tilt margin. I think maybe about 1% would be his best case, maybe even hit the percent I would put it at now. It went by about 0.3% in 2020, and I think the suburbs would just shift to a little more to Pence, but not by a lot. And I think the same thing with Georgia, maybe about 1% as well, just because, again, it's trending to the left. Turnout operations by Stacey Abrams will help turn the state blue yet again. Now going up to the Rust Belt, possibly the most important part of this election. Even though Pence is from Indiana, I don't think it'll have a massive effect. And Michigan will go by about 2% to Joe Biden, possibly even more. But I think 2% is a pretty reasonable estimate to put it at so early. I think that Pennsylvania will go about 1.5%, maybe a little under, maybe 1%. It did go by 1.2% to Joe Biden in 2020. I don't think that Mike Pence will improve with the populace, but maybe with the suburbs instead. So it could just have a shift and end up with a similar result. Now Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is a state that will be very, very close in 2024, but it does depend on who is running. A good Republican candidate that can turn out Trump voters while also appealing to the suburbs could win that state. If you see my Ron DeSantis versus Joe Biden video, I'm not going to spoil it, but I talk about that there. So I think that Mike Pence will not be able to win the state of Wisconsin. He will not be able to bring out the populace and the suburbs just enough to beat Joe Biden, but he'll still make it close. And I think it'll be more than 2020, which was a 0.6% margin, maybe about a 1% margin for Joe Biden. I think he'll vote a little to the right of Pennsylvania. And that puts Joe Biden at 302 electoral votes. That is currently underperforming his margin in 2020, but he still is president nonetheless. And of course, that is what matters for the Democrats. And that means that Mike Pence will lose the election. So now we're going to head back down to the remaining states in North Carolina and Florida. So I'm going to put North Carolina as the tilt Democratic column. The reason why this is because it was pretty narrow for Donald Trump in 2020, but I'm not sure, as I've said so many times in this video, that Mike Pence will have the same appeal. And I think that a nationwide model following the turnout idea from Stacey Abrams will be implemented around the country for Democratic voters, and that could lead to a higher amount of black turnout in North Carolina, which could flip the state blue, which would then lead Joe Biden to overperform his 2020 margin by a decently small margin, but that means he get 318 votes. Okay, going down to Florida, the last state left. It's going to be a very interesting election there to watch. Very close. If Mike Pence chooses a Floridian to be his running mate, and, I did not name running mates for this video, but I'll go into that pretty quickly. I think Joe Biden would choose Kamala Harris again, but Mike Pence would have to decide, and of course, this is of course after the primaries, which wing of the party, of the Republican Party, that he would want to appeal to most. If he wants to appeal to the Trump wing, he'll pick someone maybe like Rick Scott, Mike Pompeo, Marco Rubio, maybe Ron DeSantis, Kristi Noem, and so on. If he wants to appeal more to the suburban side, the moderate side, that would appeal then to the suburbs, he would pick someone like Nikki Haley, Mitt Romney, or Ben Sasse. But with a Floridian, I'll take it as popular one of that. I think that Mike Pence maybe could pull off victory. Joe Biden would have a lot of ground to make back after his 3.4% loss to Donald Trump in Florida. In the end, I'm not sure if he could win it. It'd be very, very close. And I think that maybe narrowly could go to Joe Biden, maybe to Mike Pence. Overall, I'm going to put it in the Joe Biden column. Here's the reason why. Joe Biden will likely improve with Latinos. I don't think Mike Pence will do as well with them. Maybe if he selects someone like Nikki Haley, he could appeal to minorities more. He could. But I think that Joe Biden will be able to improve by a much larger margin in Miami-Dade County and in other areas. And maybe with depressed turnout from the rural areas, he could pull off a narrow, and I mean narrow, victory. That puts Joe Biden at 349 electoral votes and Mike Pence at 189. I think that Pence will lose, and maybe this margin, maybe not. Joe Biden is doing pretty well in this prediction, and of course, in our polarized climate, you can't be sure. Of course, several states could switch around, and this is such an early look, it's nearly impossible to say who will win this early on. But thank you all for watching, it really means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you'll be instantly notified whenever I release a new video. Put a comment down below what you thought of the video, what your prediction for this scenario would be, any future video suggestions and any feedback. Also join the Discord. The link is in the description. I'm on there pretty often, so it'll be fun to interact with any of my viewers. That's pretty much it, everyone. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.